So, Daredevil Born Again has begun filming, which means there are a lot of new updates to cover. Like, Jon Bernthal is back as the Punisher, Kingpin's running for mayor, but there's a lot to be apprehensive about too. Like, the actress who plays Vanessa has been recast, Foggy and Karen aren't going to be in Born Again, and the show might be taking place during the blip. All of that and so much more has been announced and leaked out, but before I get into all of that, if you guys enjoyed today's video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe, and follow my social media to stay updated with my content. Alright, let's get into it. I want to start this segment out on the stuff that has me really optimistic and excited. The first thing is that Jon Bernthal is reprising his role as the Punisher. Jon Bernthal on the Punisher is like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man or Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I simply can't picture anybody else doing a better job right now as the Punisher than him. Bernthal is such a fantastic actor, and I really loved his portrayal of the character, particularly in the Daredevil show because I think that's where he was handled the best, although he was still pretty good in his own show. There have been some rumors as to what his role can be. For instance, his character might have some beef with people using his symbol for ideals he doesn't support, and this obviously makes Frank mad. I think that would be a really cool way to take his story, and kind of a meta story as well, because we've had a few instances in real life where people misuse that Punisher symbol to make it stand for something else. So making a story out of it is honestly pretty awesome. I do have some concerns about bringing him back, but I'll get to that later. The next thing I'm really excited about is Wilson Fisk. It's really cool that the story seems to focus on him almost as much as they're going to be focusing on Matt this season, essentially writing them both as protagonists. There have been some leaked footage as well of a young Fisk being bullied as a kid, so it'll be interesting to get more backstory on him. Marvel has had quite a bit of trouble giving their villains the necessary depth they need to be interesting characters, so seeing this immediately instills some faith. In the present day though, we see that they're most likely adapting the story where Wilson Fisk runs for mayor of New York City, which would obviously give him a lot of the power he needs to operate his criminal underworld properly. This sounds like a really cool way to go with the character, although it does sort of make me question the canonicity of the Netflix show a little more because I don't see how he could possibly run for mayor, let alone win after what happened in season 3, but we'll see. The next thing I already really like is the simple fact that they're actually shooting this show on location instead of the volume or some other green screen method of filming this to keep secrecy. The Netflix shows look pretty good because you could tell the locations actually felt real instead of some CGI nonsense happening in the background, and if anything, the lack of secrecy actually helps. If no set photos were being leaked, then there would be little to no chatter about this show. But instead, we Daredevil fans get to eat watching these set photos released for the whole year until the show finally releases, which builds a lot of hype and momentum before a single trailer even drops. Another thing that has me a little more optimistic is the creative team. So the showrunners, well, they're still going to have to earn my trust because their writing background definitely does not seem like a good fit for Daredevil. However, there have been some reports of the show hiring actual lawyers as consultants for the show, which tells me that they're actually going to delve deep into Matt being a lawyer and have it make sense, unlike some certain showrunners of She-Hulk. We've also seen that Arrow writers have been hired, which doesn't make me jump over the moon because Arrow wasn't the best thing ever in its entirety, but it's at least pretty related to Daredevil as both shows were both dark, gritty superhero crime dramas. And fun fact, Eric Olson was a writer on Arrow season 4, which was notoriously the worst season, and was actually the showrunner of Daredevil season 3, which was the best season. So I'm going to try to be open-minded about the writers and hope for the best. And finally, let's get to the stuff that I'm really nervous about. First, Ayelet Zurer, who played Vanessa Fisk in Daredevil, has been recast with Sandrine Holt, who some of you may recognize as Howard's wife in Better Call Saul. Sandrine Holt seems like a great actress and I can definitely see her as Vanessa, so my apprehension has nothing to do with her. But it does seem a little unnecessary to me to recast Ayelet Zurer since she had such great chemistry with Vincent D'Onofrio, and it'd be a little weird seeing another person playing this really important character. It also makes me nervous because I do want the Netflix show to be canon, and this certainly doesn't help. But it also doesn't really mean anything either way because the MCU has recast characters within their own universe a couple of times, and the fact that they're even using Vanessa as a character is a pretty good sign. And maybe the actress who originally portrayed Vanessa is simply unavailable, but I'm honestly not too worried about this particular update actually. Next is probably my biggest worry, and that's the fact that Eldon Henson and Deborah Ann Wall are apparently not signed on yet to reprise their roles as Karen and Foggy. If they truly aren't in the show, then that is a massive mistake by Marvel. These characters are extremely integral to Matt as a person. Without them, he's simply not the same guy. This would especially be aggravating since Matt went through a whole story arc of why he needs to let Karen and Foggy into his life, because without them, his life is completely dark. Mostly all the other main characters seem to be returning with the same actors, so I don't see why they can't return. That is, unless the actors are busy, but I'm pretty sure they're down and available to come back. Now, if they're recast, then oh boy, I definitely don't want that. Honestly, I prefer if they would just make some off-screen explanation as to why they're not at the show at the time and wait until the actors can come back. This is a little bit too important of a thing to just recast or throw away in my opinion, so we'll see what they do. But really, I can't see them not including Foggy and Karen in the show. All Kevin Feige wants to do is to simply please the fans, so I can't see him not trying to do everything in his power to bring them back with the original actors. There have been some rumors that Foggy has already filmed something, but we'll see. There was also some speculation that the story actually takes place during the blip, and that Foggy and Karen have been dusted. The speculation came after there was a leak shot of Matt walking outside of a church with a 2020 sign outside of it, which would date this during the time of the blip. However, it's important to note that the church, in real life, just hasn't updated its sign, so this doesn't necessarily mean that the show takes place in 2020. But I do want to talk about this more, so I'm going to move over to my hopes and expectations for the show. So I think the show taking place during the blip is a fantastic idea. We haven't really gotten a good exploration and deep dive into the world of the blip and all of its consequences, so a show like Daredevil will be perfect since it's so grounded and has so many episodes to explore stuff like this. Simply thinking about a scene where Matt's senses are going off like crazy while everyone is blipping out of existence just sounds like the most amazing thing ever, to be honest. It could also be really interesting seeing a Catholic perspective on the snap. Perhaps Foggy and Karen did get snapped and Matt goes on a contemplative journey on how a loving God could allow something like 50% of all life being erased to happen. There's a lot of room to tell some amazing stories, and it'd be awesome for it to not be tied down to make the story in the present day, just because that's what would work best for the cinematic universe. I don't mind going backwards in the MCU, just as long as the stories are worth telling, but that's why I doubt that they'll do it, because they probably have a lot of stuff they'd rather focus on in the present day. So the next thing that I'm pretty iffy about is the format of the show. Born Again is on track to film 18 episodes for the first season, and Kevin Feige has stated that the show will be experimental for episodic television versus serialized television. Now, if you don't know the difference, I'll briefly explain it. Serialized television is where episodes mostly feel like chapters in a book, as in it's in a piece of the puzzle that ties into something bigger. Episodic is where the episodes feel self-contained, where there is a proper beginning, middle, and end in one episode to simply tell one story. So many of the Disney Plus shows like Loki or Falcon and the Winter Soldier are serialized, as they're simply telling one overall story, with each episode feeling like a chapter. And shows like Arrow or The Flash are good examples of episodic television, where you can have a lot of episodes that take down a villain of the week. One isn't inherently better than the other, but I think Daredevil worked a lot better for me as serialized. I love how cinematic the show felt while also having a lot of time to breathe with its 13 episode format. With an episodic style, we won't get anything like Daredevil Season 3, which gets this one continuous cinematic journey from beginning to end. We'll get stuff where a criminal gets arrested and needs legal help, Matt does some Daredevil stuff, defends client, and then the episode ends. And again, that's not totally bad, because I do find the idea of telling and ending a story all in one episode to be fairly appealing, but I'm struggling a bit to see how it could be a better suit for these characters and world. But if it can be done in a way where each episode still somehow progresses an overall story in some way each week, then I think I'll be okay with it. Especially if by the end of the season it starts becoming more focused on one thing, then I'll feel fine about it. My only worry is that I'll end up viewing Daredevil as more of a casual show I can turn on when I'm eating dinner, rather than a 1 hour, deep cinematic journey that I was used to seeing on Netflix. Some of the things that I really loved about Daredevil were the dramatic monologues, the artistic cinematography, the slow burning moments that focused on humanity, the deep dives into characters' backstories, the time to flesh out intentional and complex themes, and the thrill of being able to go from one episode to the next. I feel that switching things into an episodic format might not have room for all of that, especially since I feel like the production of this show was slightly rushed. Daredevil Born Again was announced last Comic-Con, which was like in June of 2022, I think, and it's already started filming. Like, do the writers even have that much time to focus on pre-production and making a good script? A lot of these Disney Plus shows are slowing down for a reason, and that's largely because a lot of the productions have been severely rushed. So shows like Echo have turned into a mess because the creatives are just being rushed. But that's a whole another topic and worry. I'll try to be open-minded about the idea and part of it honestly does sound fun. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see with what the creatives end up cooking. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the rating. The rating of the show has been severely hinted to be TV-14, with Charlie Cox repeatedly warning viewers to expect a less violent version of the show, especially when compared to the stuff that happened on Netflix. Vincent D'Onofrio also tried clarifying that the show will still maintain its violence and will have similar violence to the Netflix show. But I don't really believe that after how scarred I got from Moon Knight when Feige said that it would be really violent, so I don't know. But to clarify, violence does not equal good quality. Seeing blood and gore was not what made Daredevil good. However, it did add a flavor to superhero media that you didn't often see, especially in the MCU, which is what made it more unique. It sets a different tone for the show that you wouldn't be able to achieve if it was TV-14 in my opinion. And also, why not? Disney Plus has seemingly gotten to be more comfortable in allowing more mature content on the platform, and they're already allowing Deadpool to stay rated R, so why not do the same for Daredevil? It clearly worked before and the show has already built up an audience for it, so it shouldn't really be that much of a struggle for it to maintain that rating. And it's less about seeing some occasional blood and violence and more about the target demographic. If you make a Marvel TV-14 show, you'll end up attracting similar viewers that liked Loki or Miss Marvel or literally anything else Marvel has done, which means Daredevil would have to fit a similar tone to cater to that same demographic. Therefore, I fear a TV-14 Daredevil wouldn't even be able to push the rating that far. So the tonal style of these slow burn moments, religious themes, and dramatic monologues probably won't be in the show as much, which is really what matters the most. Even just looking at Daredevil Season 3, which is widely regarded to be the best of the season, is actually not that violent in terms of blood and gore. You get an explicitly violent scene every now and then, but they're not even really that bad, especially when you compare it to the first two seasons. But if you remove and censor those bloody moments, I still find it hard to see everything else in that show to be on a TV-14 Disney Plus show. A lot of people that are expecting a similar tone to the other Marvel shows are probably going to get turned off by all the monologues, lack of quipping, harsh themes, and all the other adult and mature things in the show. But I could be proven wrong, and/or felt like a pretty mature show that was more akin to something that would premiere on HBO rather than Disney Plus, so it's definitely possible. Besides the tone and demographic issues, I do think you'd need a bit more explicit blood and violence when you're including a character like the Punisher in the mix. That's a character that 100% needs to be TVMA to fully work. There's no other way around it without diluting it and making the character feel flattered. Daredevil Season 2 is the most violent for a reason, and that's because you just have to show the Punisher this way to get a full feel for the character. I don't think I'd care as much about the philosophical views between Matt and Frank and the morality of killing people if it weren't for the gruesome murders Frank committed. Seeing the brutality of all those murders really makes me understand Matt more as a character and how he desperately wants to protect and value life. And if the rumors are true that the Punisher is going to get his own Disney Plus show, then that will definitely not be able to get away with a TV-14 rating. And with Marvel putting out like 15 projects every 2 years, like, why not have something really different like a TVMA show come out? If anything, it makes the universe feel more grand and expansive when you have a couple of TVMA things in there that feel drastically different in tone, but again, that's a whole nother topic for another time. But how am I feeling about the show overall? It might seem like I'm pretty negative about the show given all my concerns, but I really am looking forward to it. I'm just really passionate about Daredevil, and it's been pretty tough being an MCU fan these days. I just don't think I'd have it in me if the Daredevil show sucked too. As long as they can cover the essentials of bringing back Karen and Foggy, and making sure that they maintain this grounded, mature, and artistic show that was started on Netflix, they'll be fine. They can mix things up with the episode formats or the rating all they want. Just don't take away too much from the show that made it special in the first place. But either way, I'll be watching. I just can't wait to get sucked back into this world and to watch these characters again on a consistent basis. I mean, we're probably going to be watching this show for 18 straight weeks next year. Well, hopefully it comes out next year. But honestly, that's such a huge treat. We'll see what keeps happening as more news, set photos, and other things come out in the time being, but for now, those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you guys think of Born Again in the comments. Are you liking the changes? Are you really concerned? Cautiously optimistic? Is there anything you hope to see? Whatever it is, I'd love to know, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.